Wow. Wow. Welcome to Namaqua Unitarian Universalist Congregations in cyberspace. And thank you to our music director for such an amazing opening piece. Thank you. Let's see. My name is Mim Neal, and we are a polyglot, interesting, compassionate, mostly congregation, learning from each other all the time. So we are in cyberspace only today, but next week we will be bifurcated and you can come to the actual building or stay home and connect with Zoom. In any case, I hope you can join us. To begin, acknowledging that all of this high technology and amazing leadership and buildings cost money, we have a special word to you, our sponsors.
Good morning. Today you're going to get a chance to see somebody else's face and somebody else's voice. Janet Gillette has graciously agreed to talk to us about how everyone pledging is, no matter what the amount, is really important. So go ahead, Janet.
There I am. Well, my first experience with the Namaqua Unitarian Universalist congregation was at roughly the same time that Laurel came to us. She talked about process theology, and that caught my attention and interest. I was working on my master's in holistic theology, and which involved studying comparative religions and included process theology. Laurel and the congregation impressed me with their intelligence, which I've lost this morning. It's okay. And I was hooked. I had surgery during the week following my visit, so naturally I was home recuperating the following Sunday. I got a phone call from someone, I think it was Jeannie Bolton, to say that I was missed. And she immediately switched into the beloved mode and offered to help me when she found out why I hadn't attended church that week. Her genuine concern and desire to help further cemented my resolve to return as soon as I was able. Since then, I have learned that this community is a beloved and loving, compassionate community. Here, we really do have each other's backs and stand ready to encourage, celebrate, and mourn together. I've gone through many changes in the last 11 years, divorce, death, surgeries, and financial challenges. And I've experienced the fact that I don't have to do it alone. None of us has to do it alone. So due to the aforementioned financial challenges, I don't have a lot of wiggle room in my budget, but I give what I can. I think about the Bible story of the widow's mite when all she had to her name was 2 coins, and she gave one of them to the church. Maybe she gave them both, I don't remember. But
here's the deal. I pledge, and I'll continue to do so. And I hope we all do so to support one another in this beautiful journey on which we are going. May it be so.
Thank you, Janet. Now, Rebecca will give us a quick update on where we stand. How many ducks have taken the plunge, Rebecca?
Thanks, Norma. So yeah, let me get my little slide up here. Yes, we are all in it together, like Janet said. And even if we can't hold hands right now, but maybe next week we will be able to, which will be really cool. All right. Let me get. So right now we have had 25 pledges and we have $50,738. But I want you to notice this little guy right up here. This is a plucky duck ready to take the pledge plunge,
We can't
which
see it,
we
Rebecca.
hope. Pardon?
We can't see it.
Again? Dang it. How about that? Can you see that?
Nope.
Really? Well, nonetheless, we have 25 pledges and we have 25 pledges for $50,738. So here's where we stand. And I'm sorry you can't see the slides. It's Norma and I have tried to fix this and we apparently didn't. So where we are right now is that 23% of the possible pledging units have pledged. And remember, our goal is 100%. We have achieved 32% of our $160,000 goal. And we are about 37% of the way to the end of the budget drive. So, you know, we're really kind of on track here. And Friar Duck came by, and I don't know whether you'll be able to see this, but we'll give it a shot. Friar Duck says, while our thoughts and actions may be noble, it is our actions that speak loudest. So getting ready for next week will be a dialogue between two people who are really in it together, Frank and Stein, and the topic will be why pledge? And I'll keep working on this slide thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rebecca and Norma and Janet. Today's service is an investigation into things. As Thoreau writes in his journals, by a sort of essential and practical faith, each understands all. For to see that we understand is to know that we misunderstand. Each natural object is an end to itself. A brave, undoubting life do they all live, and are content to be part of the mystery. Today, Mim and I are excited to invite you into that mystery. Special thanks to our music director, Ryan Marvel, who brought us into his piano as if we were entering the beats of his heart through his original piece this morning. There is something childish and wonderful about thinking into things, about realizing the incredible, vibrant matters that surround and fill us. This morning, Mim and I invite you to remember what Jane Bennett writes about as, quote, childhood experiences of a world populated by animate things rather than passive objects. And so to begin this journey this morning, I invite you to begin by taking your hands and just rubbing them together. And as you do, see if you can build up some energy, you can build up some heat, you can build up some life. And when you're ready, let's open them and hold them here, taking a big breath and letting it go. And now I invite you to use your hands to find your way around your space. You don't have to stand up if you don't want to. It could be something very nearby, but find an object that's speaking to you and let it be the first thing that you touch. Bring it back to us, hold on to it throughout the service, and we'll come back to it later. Let's just take a minute to walk and kind of find what that object is. And throughout the service today, I invite you to just let your glance sneak over to that object Take some time just to notice it, maybe with your eyes or your fingers, or maybe it's sitting in your lap. Maybe it's a creature, maybe it's just a pen, maybe it's an earring, who knows? But if we think about to worship as to notice something, I invite you to continue noticing this object. And I invite you to also enjoy our opening song.
Vois sur ton chemin, gamins oubliés, égarés, donne-leur la main pour les mener vers d'autres landes. Donne-leur la main pour les mener vers d'autres landes. Sans cœur acquis, longue d'espoir, ardeur de vie, sentier de l'ardeur de la vie, sentier de gloire, sentier de bonheurs enfantins, trop vite oubliés, effacés, une lumière dorée brille sans fin tout au bout du chemin. Trop vite oubliés, effacés, une lumière dorée brille sans cœur acquis, longue d'espoir, ardeur de vie, sentier de l'ardeur de la vie, sentier de gloire, sentier de gloire. Elle est, il est, elle est, il est, elle est, il est, il est, il est, elle est, il est, elle est, il est, il est. Vois sur ton chemin, gamins oubliés, égarés, donne-leur la main pour les mener vers d'autres landes. Donne-leur la main pour les mener vers d'autres landes. Sans cœur acquis, longue d'espoir, ardeur de vie, sentier sans cœur acquis, longue d'espoir, ardeur de vie, sentier d'espoir.
Mary Oliver writes, everyone now and again wonders about those questions that have no ready answer. First cause, God's existence, what happens when the curtain goes down and nothing stops it, not kissing, not going to the mall, not the Super Bowl.
Wild roses, I say to them one morning, do you have the answers? And if you do, would you tell me?
The roses laughed softly. Forgive us, they said. But as you can see, we are just now entirely busy being roses.
Come, let us worship together.
We invite you to join with us in our congregational affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its call. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Today's Time for All Ages is this really beautiful book called Moon Pops, which is a retelling of a Korean folktale. And as we read it, I invite you to think of a couple things. One, what's happening with the moon, and two, the way that someone finds an enormous amount of generosity, much in line with our pledge drive. Moon Pops by Hina Beck. And what's beautiful about this book is that every picture is a diorama. So this is all 3D dioramas that are being photographed for the images. Some claim there's a man in the moon, while others say there's only cheese According to Korean folklore, when you look up into the night sky, you might just see a rabbit pounding ingredients with a mortar and pestle. It was a very, very hot night. In the middle of summer, it was too hot to sleep, too hot to do anything. And here we see a creature on the balcony fanning herself, wearing a dress beneath a bright yellow full moon. Everyone turned on their air conditioners, whir, whir. They turned on their fans, rattle, rattle. They turned on their fridge door. They opened their fridge doors, hum, hum, and they closed their windows to the heat, hoping to finally get some sleep. And here we see creatures in all of those settings throughout this apartment building. And then we see something dripping yellow coming from the sky, drip, drip, drip. What was that sound? The moon was melting. And here we see Granny with tiny glasses looking out in awe as the moon begins dripping. Granny ran from apartment 503 with a bucket to catch the falling moon drops. And there she goes, running with a bucket, trying to catch everything she can. Everyone else seems oblivious. What do I do with this? She wondered. An idea popped into her head, a moon pop idea. Granny mixed a recipe for a frozen treat. She poured in the melted moon, saving a few final drops. And here we see Granny over a big pot glowing from the light of the moon. The air conditioners whirred, the fans rattled, the fridges hummed, and we see everything alight in the apartment building, and then everything goes dark in the apartment building. Uh-oh. And that's all we see is Granny lit by the light of the moon. All the whirring and rattling and humming had caused a power outage. Everybody stepped outside. It was almost too dark to see. One bright light glowed from apartment 503. Everyone followed the light to Granny's door. And here we see all these creatures, big creatures and little creatures wearing their pajamas, walking over to Grandma's door in apartment 503. Granny stepped out to greet her neighbors with frozen moon pups. She handed them out one by one. They were icy and sweet. And here we see the moon pops glowing as Granny hands them out while her apartment continues to glow. As everyone licked their moon pops, something strange began to happen. The heat was melting away. And here we see everyone glowing with their moon pops and beautiful images of blue and yellow. Back home in their beds, everyone slept with their fans and air conditioners turned off, their fridge doors shut tight and their windows open wide. Their dreams were icy and sweet, and we see the apartment building relaxed. Knock, knock, knock. Who could it be? And here we see inside the door, two very befuddled rabbits looking at us. Granny welcomed the two strange rabbits with very tall ears into her home. She felt she'd seen them somewhere before. We come from the moon, they told her. Our home has melted away. Oh, how terrible. Granny sat and wondered what to do. Her eyes fell on an empty flower pot sitting on the kitchen table. Suddenly an idea sprouted, a moon sprout idea. She poured the last one of the moon drops into the pot. And sure enough, an evening primrose bloomed. It grew big and bright and round like the moon. The petals opened to the sky. And you see these petals glowing bright, bright, bright yellow. Granny is looking at them happily. And we see a moon going from a tiny dot through all the cycles of the moon to a full moon in the sky in the image. Granny and the rabbits waited. A small spot of light sprouted from the flower, lifting high up into the darkness. It grew bigger, brighter, rounder, into a full moon. And the rabbits cheered and danced back up in their home in the sky. And there we see them in the moon with a mortar and pestle dancing. And at last, Granny got into bed. She wished for dreams that were icy and sweet. Good night, everyone. And we see Granny pulling the blanket just up under her chin. In her book, Vibrant Matters, that this service is named after, Jane Bennett points to the writing of Lucretius, the Roman devotee of Epicurus, as a way of thinking into the vibrancy of things. In this excerpt of Bennett's book, she quotes Lucretius and creates a parallel to Hina Beck's dripping wonders in Moon Pops. Quote, Lucretius tells of bodies falling in a void, bodies that are not lifeless stuff, but matter on the go, entering and leaving assemblages, swerving into each other. And she writes, Lucretius says, at times quite undetermined and at undetermined spots, they push a little from their path, yet only just so much that you could call a change of trend. For if they did not swerve, all things would fall downwards through the deep void like drops of rain. Nor could collision come to be, nor a blow brought to pass from the primordia. So nature would never have brought anything into existence. The philosopher Louis Althusser described this as materialism of the encounter, according to which political events are born from a chance meeting of atoms, like we just saw. A primordial swerve says that the world is not determined, that an element of chanciness resides at the heart of things, but also affirms that so-called inanimate things have a life. The deep within is an inexplicable vitality or energy, a moment of independence from and resistance to us and other bodies, a kind of thing power, a kind of magical moon power. Mim is going to take us into another reflection.
Excuse me. In late January 1992, I walked into a small church classroom in Evanston, Illinois. Melinda Perrin had arranged the chairs in a circle for a discussion group on the Native American medicine wheel. 30 years later, I am still learning from Native American spirituality. The beads on this simple little necklace represent some of my teachers. The blue is for Melinda, whose Seneca name is Blue Cloud. The red with the white dots identifies me as someone who has learned from Jim Gillihan, a Cherokee and ally of the Dakota Sioux, and a pipe carrier. I participated in several of the pipe ceremonies he led. The heart in the middle represents Grandmother Twyla, a Seneca elder who taught me about the interconnectedness of all existence and the imperative of gratitude. The little turtles represent Turtle Island, our planet, the earth on which we live and for which we are responsible. I often wear it, like today, when I'm helping with a service. It somehow reinforces me. On occasion, I carry them in this little crocheted purse that Grandmother Twyla created for me during the ceremony honoring her and Grandmother Kiwe Donakwe, an Anishinaabe elder. We called her Grandma Ki. That honoring ceremony was staged by Prairie Earth UU Fellowship, which had evolved from the discussion group into a spirit lodge that grew into a network of spirit lodges. And I was part of all of that. We met monthly, working from teachings in a book written by Grandmother Twyla's granddaughter. We staged ceremonies for each season. went on pilgrimages to Grandmother Twyla's home on the Cattaraugus Reservation in upstate New York. Many of us did the work required to become members of the Seneca Wharf Clan. We held sweat lodges. 6 of us went on a vision quest, and we created living treasures, events honoring those who safeguarded Native traditions and those who safeguard our planet. The last event that I helped plan honored Pete Seeger for his work to save the Hudson River and the river fox who helped save a Chicago area river system. And all of this is contained in this little necklace.
The spiritual teacher Molly Vass writes, if you place 2 living heart cells from different people in a petri dish, they will in time find and maintain a third and common beat. We are here to listen and hold each other in our joys and in our sorrows. And in responding to each person sharing today, I invite you to create a heartbeat with a hand on your chest. And through it all, may we find a third and common beat of our hearts together. So if you have a joy or a sorrow that you'll bless us by sharing, if you could put your name in the chat, or if you want to raise your hand here and unmute. Doug.
This is a week with joy and sorrow, or at least remembering sorrow, I suppose. The joy was that Cameron and we celebrated on Valentine's Day our 20th wedding anniversary, so that was wonderful. And the next day, the 15th, would have been our daughter Jessica's 40th birthday. And so this was our first birthday since we lost her, and so that was a day of the family missing her.
Thank you for sharing, Doug. Let's first take a heartbeat, a flutter in celebrating your anniversary. And let's have a heartbeat of loss and of holding you in a hard memory. Thank you. Pete.
I just want to say that Jennifer's down in Baja, Mexico this week. She's communing with the whales. And I wish to heck I could have gone with them, but I'm not much for seawater. So anyway, she's having a blast down there, I'm sure, but I can't communicate with her. There's no cell phone service. So anyway, I think she's having a blast.
Thank you for sharing that, Pete, for you on your own, for Jen communing with the whales, and for the giant hearts of the whales. Let's give a heartbeat. Marsha Lewis says, I'm happy to celebrate my birthday with you, and also happy to celebrate the birth of my niece, Rosemary, in California. Let's give some fluttering heartbeats for Marsha on her birthday and the birth of her niece, Rosemary. Laurel.
I want to celebrate the joy, Claire, of being with you and with the Denver University Prison Arts Institute for the Resiliency Workshop training that we did in Denver on Thursday. It was amazing.
Thank you so much, Laurel, and thank you for being there, celebrating that good work and all those beautiful people. Let's have a heartbeat. Kathy says, please bestow upon my good friend Karen in Madison your healing thoughts. She was in a bad car accident in Georgia and is recuperating in a Madison hospital. So for Karen and all those who care about her. Jim Danforth writes, joy and concern. We joyfully celebrate the community kitchen several times a year by serving dinner. And the concern is we need 2 more volunteers to join our team at the Kitchen Friday from 4 to 7. Please let Linda Danforth know if you can. And Linda's number is in the chat. Thanks. So for the good work of the kitchen and for all of us pitching in to help that good work, let's give a heartbeat. For all the, Tam says, has a joy. When Alex and I moved to Loveland in September, I prayed the universe would help me find my people and give me a purpose in our new home. And the divine answered me, and we are here. And what a joy that is for all of us, Tam. Thank you for sharing that. For our common heartbeat together, let's share. For all the joys and sorrows we have said out loud or we've typed, for all those deep in our hearts, and for the life we have yet to live, let's sync our heartbeat just one more time. And in reflecting on that, we will listen to an ending, a beginning by and played by Dustin O'Halloran. Mim has invited us to explore the many ways in which objects can contain multitudes. The Indigenous scholar Barbara Alice Mann gives depth to these multitudes when she writes about the ways in which many Indigenous folks experience things in her book, Spirits of Blood, Spirits of Breath. And so our second reading is a paragraph from this. Mann writes, "It is important for all creation to coordinate its actions in physical reality through dreams and visions. Consequently, the airy conceit that dreams and visions are exclusive to human beings is entirely European in its origin and inapplicable to Turtle Island. Indians have little trouble seeing spiritual beings in stones, rocks, fire, clouds, and other items that Westerners demote to inanimate objects. Furthermore, for Indians, human beings are neither separate from nor above the rest of creation, so that visions and dreams also animate the existence of fire and water, rocks and stars. Thus, everything, from animals, fire, and constellation to plants and rocks and water, has its own bundle. Oak tree envisions his reality just as lake dreams hers. When Indians test the properties of trees and water, they are asking them about their dreams and visions. And now Mim has another dream and vision to share with us.
I loved, excuse me. I loved my mom. I admired her wit, beauty, and generosity. She had a typical 1950s life, a consummate homemaker, volunteer, player of bridge. It was not a life I wanted, but I understood the constraints of the benevolent but unyielding patriarchy of those times. My friends loved my mom. There was a sassiness, a vitality about her that delighted people. She was passionate about almost everything, profligate with both money and emotion, compassionate and witty, and always creating something, a new look for a room in her house, a new recipe, a party. She loved to fish and swim and dance and go to plays. Her hair was always perfectly coiffed, her makeup precisely applied. Whether she was hostess at a company dinner or standing in the middle of a trout stream wearing rubber wading boots. And jewelry, mostly costume stuff, that was always the just right accessory for whatever she was wearing. Whenever she could, she worked on her art, working in watercolors and pastels. I treasure her portraits of my kids. And she read all the time, all kinds of books, but mostly mysteries and novels. She was never without some form of the written word. On one of our family fishing trips, we stayed in a rough little cabin where the walls did not quite reach the ceiling. One night, deep in a novel about the Civil War, her light was keeping my brother awake. When he complained, she countered saying she was almost done and had to find out what happened. The South won, growled Bill, age 12. She laughed and turned out the light. Decades later, she died after a series of strokes that kept her in nursing homes for 15 years. I wound up with her jewelry that turned out to be an important resource for my younger son, who gave selections to whatever woman he was dating at the time. I only have a few pieces now, and one blue satin case for earrings, I guess, that zips. I use it to hold the stones, earrings, that I use in my morning ritual. For one brief moment every morning, I touch base with my mom. Early.
Thank you, Mim. This quarter's offering is shared with the Loveland Food Kitchen, which supports folks who are experiencing food insecurity. Please give generously as we listen to Opus 28 also by Dustin O'Halloran.
May 1989. Recently promoted at Rotary International, I was, for the first time, in charge of publicity for our convention in Seoul, Korea. Our offices were not yet open. Most of our material had been held up in customs. We camped out in the basement office of my local contact and stored our office supplies in the trunk of a rented car. These were less than ideal conditions. There was much to be done before the convention, so I planned to work through our first weekend. My local contact advised against it. It was too soon, he warned, to put so much pressure on my newly hired staff. And further, no one would work on Buddha's birthday. He pointed out that we had a car and driver at our disposal, and I took the hint. I asked his wife, Maggie, where she would visit under my circumstances, and she wrote directions to 5 temples, suggesting we start at the top, at the temple in the mountains north of the city. Nancy and 2 of my newly hired staff came along. The whole day was like being in a National Geographic Special. Festoons with thousands of paper lanterns, marvelous lotus layer creations in resplendent colors, with papers dangling from their bases, fluttering prayers. At the first temple, we were greeted by the sight of priests singing and dancing to the ululations of drums and cymbals and gourds. Throngs of celebrants dressed for a grand occasion, the women in modern white or colorful traditional attire, crowded the courtyard. In each of Maggie's temples, there were little shrines twinkling with hundreds of lighted candles. Each had painted chronicles of Buddha's life. And wonderful dragons with long curling whiskers. And on this day, each had a little statue of the baby Buddha. People would approach and gently pour special tea or water over the Buddha's head, another form of prayer. By late afternoon, my companions had it. They wanted to go shopping. We were having trouble finding what Maggie called the poor people's temple, tucked behind the National Cemetery. Our frustrated driver asked directions for the third time and then drove the circuitous macadam past the last row of graves, midway up a small hill. Below us on the right was a stand of pines, and on the left-hand summit, the temple we sought. We climbed the nearly perpendicular slope into a cluster of simple, flat-topped buildings. The centerpiece was a courtyard with an overhead trellis, even embellished with colored paper lanterns. The complex was spare and drab, and I liked the feel of the place. Wandering the Spartan shrines above the courtyard, I looked down to see children washing the baby Buddha statue with water from a wash tub. The cynical would-be shoppers were enchanted with the friendly people at the complex. They sampled food from the communal kitchen and played with the children. I sat on one of the courtyard's wooden benches and tried to absorb the spirit of this lovely, earnest place. Eventually, the rest of the group grew bored and walked back down to the car, expecting me to follow. I did not. Nikyung came back to urge my departure. Give me a few minutes, I said. I want to remember everything. She sat at the end of the bench, too loyal to argue. I closed my eyes in semi-meditation, then prompted by awareness of another's presence, I looked up and saw the face of a Buddhist priest. Welcome, he said, his only English word. I spoke no Korean. Nikyung moved over to translate. He wants to know why you're here. Tell him I wanted to see the celebrations of Buddha's birthday. A learned lady told me that his was a very special temple. He wants to know why you stayed behind. because this is indeed a very special temple. I love the peace of it and am reluctant to return to the city. He motioned me to stand and follow, and with Mikyung, we moved through the temple complex to his cell. The room had one window, a sleeping mat, a hook with his spare robe, and a small box. He sat with his back to the window. I sat with my back to the door. Mikyung behind me, protecting. In silence, the priest reached into his box and presented me with a plastic Buddhist rosary and a small laminated portrait of the Korean saint Won Ho, who brought Buddhism to the common people. I could think of no token of my respect until I remembered the esteem in which business cards were held. I pulled mine out and presented it, holding it flat on two hands and bowing slightly. He put it in his box. I have kept the rosary and a laminated saint. I hope he kept my call.
Inspired by Mim's story, and as a way to bring us together, I invite you to do a couple things. One, I'm going to put on a piece of music, and when I do, I invite you to go back to getting our hands nice and warm. And after you have them nice and warm, pick up whatever that object is that you brought with you from the beginning of the service. And inspired by Mim's story, I invite you to press it between your hands, to give us a bow, and then to take your object out and just let it have a little dance on your screen, a little dance on your own, a little dance with everyone here, a big dance that we're creating together with all these really wonderful things. So with the music, rubbing, clasping, bowing, dancing. Have fun, get wild, make your object do things that it wouldn't normally get to do. Give it a chance to explore this great big world we're in together. And holding onto your object, I invite you to just take your pinky out and to just give your object a little caress, thanking it. And to take your object to your cheek, and for it to give your cheek a caress, feeling it, thanking you for being here. And now Mim will help us extinguish our chalice.
After we listen to some music.
Oh. Oh. Music first.
Você toshima, yamanzo never d'autre sont accueillants de la nuit, l'onde d'espoir, attend de la vie, sentier de gloire. Bon, nos enfants, toi, vie, tout vie est effacé, le mieux d'aurait brillé sans fond tout au bout de chemin. Sont accueillants de la nuit, l'onde d'espoir, ado de la vie, sentier de gloire. Voici ton chemin, gamin oublié, égaré, dans la main pour les mains, never d'autre là des mains. Sont accueillants de la nuit, l'onde d'espoir, attend de la vie. Sont accueillants de la nuit.
Our opening and closing music, while sung in French, invites us to continue this relationship with our inner child and the magic wonder of childhood all around us. Look upon your path, the children lost and forgotten. Lend them a hand to show them a better future. Feel in the middle of the night the wave of hope, the eager passion of life, the pathway to glory. Childish joys too quickly forgotten, erased. A golden light shines endlessly at the end of the path.
May we find these childish joys in things around us every day. May we look deeply into objects and feel our gaze returned. May we continue toward the golden light at the end of the path and be content to be part of the mystery. May it be so. Special thanks this morning to Mim. I really love putting the service together with you, and for Dawn for being our Zoom tech. Thank you so much. Announcements. As Mim mentioned at the beginning, very excited next Sunday. There's an in-person option as well as a virtual option for our service. Vaccination and masks are required, and if you're not vaccinated, you need to do a same-day test at home or at church. Some are available in Parker Hall. Proof of vaccination is not required because we're trusting our beloved community. The annual pledge drive, if you have any questions, you can find Norma and Rebecca's emails in the chat from the beginning of the service today. There are several new adult RE classes, and if you would like to find something there or you want to just be curious about what might resonate with you, please visit namaquauu.org for details where you can also register. There is a new class called Facing Death with Life, which Reverend Laurel, Cindy Black, Sally Henry, and the pastoral care team are putting together. Check out information on the website. Calling all ukulele players. On Saturday, February 26th, a group of us will be gathering with our ukes in Parker Hall at 1 p.m. Some years ago, Namakwa had a ukulele band, Ukes, and right before COVID hit, we were gearing up to start it again. Now the positivity rate is low enough. Let's meet and make some music together. Some music is provided, but bring your own if you have it, and bring a music stand if you have one. Please continue to make donations to the Boulder Valley UU Fellowship for families who are members of that UU Fellowship in Lafayette, lost their homes in the Marshall Fire. Some folks have already donated directly to the congregation to help folks with their financial needs. You can find the information for that in the weekly email blast. And our half plate recipient for the third quarter is Loveland's Community Kitchen, which we spoke about. Please make sure that you're possibly free on Friday night, February 25th from 4 to 7. We could use your help. Please contact Linda Danforth if interested, and that phone number is also in the chat. Thank you, Dawn, for putting us into a coffee quarter hour. I hope you all have a really magical week. Thanks for joining us.